recording. And so my name is Stacy Downey. I'm a program analyst at the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. And on behalf of the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, all of the members of the Adult and Family Education Unit team, and in partnership with the University of the District of Columbia, we are pleased to welcome you to the third and final day of the Winter 2023 Mini Professional Development Institute, which we called Charting Your Financial Journey, How Financial Literacy Can Help You and Your Family Achieve Your Financial Goals. We've had an awesome institute with so much phenomenal information about financial literacy. So thank you for joining us for those prior sessions as well as for this final session today about Bank on DC. Our session today will be recorded and posted on the OSSE website. And it is with pleasure that we now turn over the session to Jazman Hicks, who is with the DC government, DC Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, often known by its acronym DISB.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Financial Literacy Session with Bank on DC. My name is Jazman Hicks and I'm the Program Analyst for Bank on DC within the Office of Financial Engagement and Empowerment and Education. So first I want to thank you all for, being able to receive this information today. And more importantly, being able to leave this session with some financial tools to be able to get you from financial stress to financial confidence. This will be an interactive presentation. So when I ask you all any questions, you can put it in the chat or you can take yourself off mute or raise your hand and, then you can answer that question. But this is more so of a conversation. We want to get a conversation going around financial literacy today. So I'm looking forward to everyone's active participation. Lastly, you will need to have some paper and a sheet of paper, some paper and a pen, so you can be able to take notes because it's going to be a lot of great information today. So without further ado, let's begin. So just make sure we have everyone muted. If you're not talking, please mute yourself so we won't have any echoes or any loud noises from any other rooms. Again, I'm the Bank on DC program analyst / program manager. And to give you all a little bit about what we do as Bank on DC before we start, our biggest mission is to provide affordable access to services and products to, again, take you guys from financial stress to financial confidence. And some of the ways we do this is by partnering with financial institutions to reach underbanked and unbanked individuals. Does anyone in here, and you can type in the chat or you can take yourself off mute, does anyone on this call today know what an unbanked individual is, an unbanked individual? And let's see if anyone knows this. I won't expect you to know it, but just to get you guys' brain going today. An unbanked individual. You have anyone in the chat? Okay, so maybe not yet, but an unbanked individual is an individual who doesn't have a bank account, and when they get paid, they're probably spending anywhere to $300 to $400 a year on fees. So when we're talking about cashing these checks, maybe they're going to, a check cashing place, maybe a liquor store, maybe Walmart, but they're using other services other than your physical branches or your banks or credit unions that are in their location. Now, we also want to reach underbanked individuals. And I'll ask again, does anyone know what an underbanked individual is? See, we have Miss Stacy writing in the chat to see if she knows what an underbanked individual is. Okay, she placed a PowerPoint. So an underbanked.
I don't, but sorry, but I did just, wanted people to know where they can get the PowerPoint. And so yes, you might even be able to peek ahead and know and get a clue to the answer.
Sure. No, always use your resources. And I see someone writing in the chat, it's Michelle Johnson. So while she's writing, an underbanked individual is an individual who does have a bank account, but they're still using some of those, alternate check cashing, facilities, or they're still using alternate ATMs that are causing them to still inquire those fees. And we don't want individuals getting unnecessary fees, because these are some of the reasons why they close bank accounts and such things like that. And the third way we bring this whole, beautiful thing together is by working with the financial institutions, but also working with community programs. So with the community programs and the partnership with financial institutions, we are able to reach all of our DC residents who do not have a bank account, but the ones who are also missing that financial literacy that someday can create generational wealth. Now, let's take a look. What are some words, lyrics, or phrases that come to mind when we think about money? And we can put some of these things in the chat. And I see Ms. Johnson say, yes, someone who doesn't fully utilize their banking services. Absolutely. Let's think, what are some words, lyrics, or phrases that come to mind when we think about money? I know for me, one of the things that makes me really think about money is not having it, being broke, right? If we don't have enough of it, we're absolutely going to think about having more money. I need the money. Absolutely, absolutely. I need the money is a phrase, or, a sentence that you're like, wow, I need some money. But one of the things that we should also think about is cream. Oh, if, for any of my Wu-Tang fans, cream, yes, cream, cheddar, cheese, any of those words that bring home the bacon. Yes, Stacy, bring home the bacon. When we think about these, moolah, yes, moolah. I think that's one of my favorite ones. See if we have a couple more. Money, money, money. Yes, yes. I think of one that, my dad he used to play this song back in the day, for the love of money. Please excuse my singing ability, but all of these cha-ching, yes, all of these words or phrases make us think about money. But let's dive a little deeper to what that really feels like. So, what is one of the first steps for turning your dreams into reality? How you spend it wisely. Yes. What are some of the first steps for turning your dreams into reality? And we can write this in the chat as well. What do we all think? How do we turn our dreams into a reality? Saving? Absolutely. Absolutely. Financially, if we're talking about financially, absolutely saving. Research. We have to research. And this could be financially, or this can be personally. I see is that Yvonne says having a plan, absolutely. Writing it down, establishing goals and planning. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. So we're all hitting it on the head. I think we can all say with the main way that we can establish or turn a dream into a reality is by writing it down, coming up with a plan. I'm a former athlete, and I don't think any coach that I had came into a season with a goal in mind and didn't have a plan. And I think even when we get a little more detailed, we take a look at that plan every week to make sure that we're following that plan. Writing it down and making sure that we're holding ourselves accountable, I think is huge. A lot of times, we put other people first, and sometimes some of their goals, or sometimes some of the things that they want to achieve. But when we want to really turn our dreams into reality, we have to put ourselves first. We have to make sure that every day that that we're doing certain things to our goals, are we aligning our behavior with those goals? So let's take a look. As we talk about goals, we have what we call our SMART goals. And to be a little detailed, with these SMART goals, what we do is make sure that we want to help you guys navigate and actually make it to your goals. So when we say specific, what we're talking about is, what do I need? Who's involved? Where will this goal take place? And more specifically, why do I want to accomplish this goal? I think sometimes we overstep, or we don't take the time to say, why do I want this goal? Is this something that someone else wants, or is this something that I truly want to achieve? And then when we look at measurable, how much? How many? How will I know when it is accomplished? Is there something that will happen when this goal is accomplished? And is it attainable? Do I have, or can I get the resources needed to achieve the goal? Is the goal reasonable for you? And it's one of those things, is when we say, is the goal reasonable for you? Is this something that you really can get? And are the actions that you plan, is it likely to bring success? So are the actions that you plan to take place, is it likely to bring success? And when we say relevant, is it worthwhile? Is it a worthwhile goal for right now? Or is it meaningful to me or to you? Is it meaningful? Or just something others think I should do? So some people should think you should do something, and you may say, hey, yeah, that is a great goal. But do I really want to accomplish this, or is this something that someone else wants me to do? Early in life, I had an uncle who, he taught me how to play chess, and he knew I was becoming a great chess player, but this is something that he wanted to do. This was a goal of his, for me to become a professional chess player. But I had to take his goal in mind, but to say that's not my goal. And then would it delay or prevent you from achieving a more important goal? And are you willing to commit to that goal? And lastly, time bound. What is the deadline for reaching the goal? And when do you need to take action? Do you need to take action now? Or do you need to wait? Or more importantly, when we wake up, what can you do today to get closer to that goal? Now let's take some time, about 5 minutes, maybe even shorter than that, maybe about 1 to 2 minutes. Let's take some time to write down a SMART goal. We want you guys to take some time to write down a SMART goal. And then I will ask someone after that if they want to share what they wrote down. So I'll give you guys about 1 to 2 minutes. Actually, let's take about 1 minute. And once you guys have it written down, feel free to put it in the chat so we can discuss. Okay, so did anyone come up with a SMART goal? And again, you can write it in the chat, or you can hit your camera, or you can hit your mic, and you can verbally say it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and tell you all my SMART goal, if we don't have anyone that has put anything in the chat just yet. So my SMART goal for the next 5 to 6 months is to make sure that I drink a gallon of water each day, and make sure that I work out at least 3 times a week. Now, for me, writing this down does so much, but being able to look at it on a vision board, it really helps me out. I see we have Mr. Dawkins to have all household bills brought to current within the next 90 days. Mr. Dawkins, I think that is an amazing goal. I think with that goal in mind, once you place that budget on what those bills are and how long it takes to get there, I think if I talk to you in about 90 days, we'll be having a very different conversation and a very uplifting conversation that you completed your goal. But we have to remember sometimes other things can get in the way of that goal. Sometimes it can be people around us. Sometimes it can be things that we sometimes feel like we need that we want that we don't necessarily need. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're putting ourselves first. Now, we want to prioritize our spending. And at the top of that list, everyone, is needs. Anything necessary for survival, food, shelter, water. These are all the things that we need to survive. Not that we want, but that we have to have to be able to wake up and be able to maneuver throughout the day. Obligations. These are things like credit cards. These are subscriptions like the Planet Fitness subscription that we have sometimes that we don't all take advantage of. I know I'm sometimes guilty of that myself. But obligations and needs are things that should be on the top of your budget list. Now, when we get to the bottom and we talk about wants, we're all going to want certain things. But let's really look at a want. Is that something that we need, or is that something that we want? Is we all want to eat good, but we don't have to go to Ruth Chris every Friday, or we don't have to try to figure out how we can eat pizza every day or eat out every day. Let's be responsible about this. When we say prioritize our spending, yeah, we need shoes, we need clothes, but we don't need the most expensive clothes. We don't need the most expensive shoes. I think some of the wealthiest people in this world, I don't think they really think about what they're wearing. I think they think about, how their money is working for them to work harder or work smarter, not harder. Let's take a look. This guy is jumping up. He's ecstatic. Pay yourself first. Save first, spend what is left. So if we can in the chat really quick, what do you all think pay yourself first means? We can write it in the chat or you can unmute yourself. What do you all think pay yourself first means? Yeah, see, we have someone writing in. Pay yourself first. Budget money for your savings. Great answer. Anyone else? Adding money to a savings or retirement. Absolutely. Putting something into savings. Mr. Dawkins said, putting a specific amount aside at a specific time just for savings. Absolutely. Absolutely. You all are hitting it right on the nail. So when we say pay yourself first, that means put something aside, pay yourself whatever that goal is that you have. That means you value yourself. So when we're paying ourselves, that's not going to buy something nice or to buy something new. Paying yourself first is whatever that goal is that you came up with, putting money aside to reach that goal, because whatever you've decided that goal is, it's more important to you. And no one should be able to stand in the way of that goal. Now, we may have emergencies that may happen, but paying yourself first is putting that money aside to be able to function and take care of things for the future. So great answers, everyone. Poll question. What are some benefits of having a bank account? And you guys can put some short phrases or words or sentences, but what do you all think are some benefits of having a bank account? Sure, having your money somewhere safe. And when we're going to talk about that as far as what safe means, but absolutely having your money somewhere safe. Great answer, Mr. Dawkins. I said we have some more participants wanting to chime in. Not paying extra fees. Absolutely. So exactly what we spoke about earlier. If you have a bank account, you don't have to pay extra fees on direct deposit, like some of these other alternative check cashing, apps or physical locations will charge you. I'm pretty sure a lot of people here have Cash App. When you receive that that instant deposit, it's a fee associated. So we want to make sure that you guys are getting into an account that doesn't have any fees. Protection on purchases from fraud. I think security is one of the reasons why I really bank with a bank account, because security is one of the reasons that that if you know that your money is secure and you lose it, you may have a good chance of getting it back. So let's take a look at some of the real benefits. Safety, we just talked about that. It's insured fraud protection. So if any of you are familiar with the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, acronym known as FDIC, when you have a bank account and you lose a certain amount of money, and I want to see if anyone knows what that certain amount is, but from zero up into a certain amount of money, if you are scammed out or you've had a transaction that you didn't do, the bank is going to give you that money back. It's going to be within a 10-day frame, but more than likely it's going to be within the next 2 days. And that gives you security that if you know you lost some money, you're going to get it back. Now, if that money is at your house and someone comes in or you're robbed or you lose that money at home, where's the insurance on that? You don't have any insurance. Now, maybe you have it within your homeowner's insurance, but the insurance on being able to protect money in your house is not as good as it is if you have it inside of a bank account. And it's convenient. You have so many different ways to check your account. And I see Mr. Richard said 250,000. Absolutely. So from anywhere from zero up into 250,000, your money is insured. Now, for you all, one thing I would think, okay, if I have up into $250,000 insured, what happens if I have 255,000? What happens to that extra 5,000? Is it insured? Now, no, it's not insured with that one account, but the only thing you'll have to do is open up an additional account with that institution, and now you have another account that's insured anywhere from zero up into $250,000. So that'll be something for you guys to really write down, because when you go in these banks, some of these bankers are not all good bankers. And you want to have knowledge so that you can ask these questions. So just in case they answer inappropriately or they answer in a way that is not the same of what you've learned, you'll be able to call them out and say, hey, look, I was told that anywhere from zero up into 250,000 for any bank that is FDIC insured, that's the amount that I'll be able to get back, and you will be right. The third thing we look at is cost. So we're avoiding check cashing fees. When I worked in the financial institutions for about 8 years, it was really mind blowing when I had individuals that came in and cashed a check that was written off that bank, but they didn't have an account there, and they were willing to take the $8 fee. And they would say, "Oh yeah, $8, that doesn't really hurt me." But if you continue to just cash that check, that $8 will add up, and by the end of the year, you're looking at almost $500, and you could have had that in your savings. And when we say secure a financial future, I'm pretty sure a lot of you want to eventually own a home, want to eventually, buy a car, or for all of my entrepreneurs that want to get a, maybe a business loan. That starts with creating that relationship with the financial institution. Now, insured financial institutions. Now, there are two ways to be insured. If you're a bank, you have FDIC, which is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. And then if you're a credit union, you have the National Credit Union Association. And they actually work the same way as the FDIC, with ensuring you that anywhere from zero up into 250,000 is insured. But let's kind of break this down, the difference between a bank and a credit union, because for all of my participants that are here today, a bank may serve a certain purpose and a credit union may serve a certain purpose. So for our banks, they are for profit. And what that means is any fee that they charge you, they're going to use that in a benefit of the bank, and anyone can join. So as you all, may know, as you go into, a Bank of America or a Chase or a PNC, you can walk in and say, hey, I want to open an account. And they're going to sit you down and they're going to go over the account opening process. But for any of the individuals who are familiar with Navy Federal, as you know, you have to know someone to get inside of that financial institution. You can't just go in and say, hey, I want to open an account, because they're going to tell you, well, there's a certain way that we go about opening accounts. And if you're not a member, then you can't open an account. So I want to make sure that you all know that today. And For me, this is a great point because banks are more accessible than credit unions, but credit unions are a little bit more intimate. So, they may only have 3 or 4 credit unions, maybe in your region, but you may know everyone at each branch, which is a benefit for you because you may be on one side of town and you need to go in the branch and maybe you don't have your ID for any reason, or maybe you don't have everything you need to do a transaction. If they know you, then more times than not, they'll help you through a transaction. And that kind of still goes back to building that banking relationship. Now, credit unions are membership owned. So as we talked about, you have to be a member to be in, but they're not for profit. So the fees that they charge you more than likely will somehow go back into the customer. They'll somehow try to help you out as far as any money that you've spent over time. Um, and I think one of the biggest ones is our banks. It's really a thing when you can go in and say, hey, I want to invest in some stock. And if you invest in just one stock for any financial institution that's a bank, essentially you own a piece of that bank. It may sound crazy, but you own a piece of that bank. And for our credit unions, it's member owned. So anyone who's a member, that's the only way that you'll be able to get a piece of that pie. Now let's take a look at the type of accounts that most banks or most financial institutions or credit unions that they offer. Now, we have a checking account. Your checking account is your spending account. That is the account that more than likely you're getting your direct deposit sent. And this is the account that you're going to pay bills out of. Now, most of our checking accounts, they may have a fee that's associated with that checking account, but it's up to the banker and for you to know that there are ways to waive that fee. Most ways to waive a banking account fee is by having a direct deposit set up. I think that's the easiest one. But guess what? We may not always have a direct deposit that's coming in, or we may lose our job and we don't have a direct deposit. The bank must give you another way to waive that fee, which could also be swiping your debit card a certain amount of times a month, or keeping a certain balance in your bank account daily. Now, I think that third one is probably the toughest one to do, keeping an exact balance in your account, because we have things that are coming out, we have bills, we have things we need to pay for. So that one could be kind of tough. Now, we have a savings account, and a savings account is a very, very important piece to building generational wealth. Now, at each bank or credit union, you're going to have different tiers of a savings account. You're going to have your basic tier. You're going to have your tier that once you start saving a good amount, now the bank is going to tell you, hey, look, because of the amount of money that you have, you can put it in a certain savings account that, and this is an important word, that's going to get you a high APY. Now, for anyone who doesn't know what APY is, that is the acronym for the annual percentage yield. And what the annual percentage yield is, the interest that you'll get back on that account for having a certain amount of money in. Now, remember, there are tiers to savings accounts, but when you open your checking account, I would recommend to start off at your basic tier. Now, restrictions around the savings account are that you can only do 6 withdrawals per month from a savings account. 6 withdrawals per month from a savings account, and that is nationally. That's at every bank, that's at every credit union. 6 withdrawals per month. And after that 6th withdrawal, if you withdraw 7 times, they're going to charge you a fee. Now, here's the important fact. If you continue to do this over a 3 to 4 month rolling period, some banks will automatically turn that savings account into a checking account. You ask why? Because you're using that savings account almost as a checking account. You guys are doing too many withdrawals, and the bank wants you to hold on to your money. They want you, if you have a savings account, they want you to build that wealth. And one of the ways they do that is by charging you if you continue to withdraw. Now, The money market is the highest tier of a savings account. And what we mean by that is to open a money market account, more often than not, you're going to have a balance of maybe $5,000 to $10,000. And this is the opening balance. But it works the same way as any other savings account. You only get 6 withdrawals per month. And if you go over that 6 withdrawal, then they're going to charge you. Now, when you start to get into the tiers of savings accounts that require a certain amount to go in, it also requires you not to fall below that certain amount. So if SunTrust, now Truist, says, hey, to open a money market account, you have to open it up with $10,000. You must stay at that $10,000 line for that entire month, or you're going to be charged a fee. But the APY, which, remember, guys, is that acronym for interest, with a money market account, you're going to have the highest APY, which means you're going to get the highest amount of interest that you can receive back. Now, right now, for those who don't know, the APY on money market accounts is the highest that it's ever been in a very, very long time, almost 20 years at 3.7%. So, for those who are into the stock market, and you have to actively check on your stocks and you can't just put your money in there and just let it make money, this will be a great time, if you do have money in stocks, to look and see what stocks are not doing so well, and put that money into a savings account where when you go to sleep, you're getting the same rate that when you are awake. Now, our last account that is offered in most banks or credit unions is a certificate of deposit. And this is also a savings account, but it works a little differently. So with our basic savings in our money market, your money is liquid, which means you can go in at any point to withdraw your money. But with a certificate of deposit, it has predictable goals. You pledge your money and highest interest rates. So let's break that down. When we say you pledge your money, that means you're locking in your money for a certain amount of time. It could either be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be 18 months, or it could be 2 years. Whatever the bank is offering for the amount of time, but the higher or the more time that you keep that money in, the higher your interest rate is going to go up. So with the money market, when you have 3.7%, maybe with the CD, they're going to give you 3.8% or maybe 4% because you can't touch your money. Your money is locked in. Now, guess what? No bank can completely tell you that, hey, you can't take your money out. But with this CD, if you do decide to withdraw, it's going to come with the fee. Now, that fee is going to be higher or lower depending on when you withdraw. So if you open up a CD in January and you decide, I have an emergency that's coming up and you need to withdraw, let's say in March, that fee is going to be a lot higher than if you were to withdraw, let's say in December or November when you're almost coming up on that 1 year pledge. And I want to stop right there just to see if I have any questions about the type of accounts that most banks or credit unions offer. Any questions? Okay, so we have a question. That's great. Let's see.
You have the chat available, and you can also unmute yourselves for questions.
Okay, so if you have no question, but you broke down that nicely. Okay, thank you, Miss Lynch. I really appreciate that. Okay, so let's take a look. Opening and maintaining a bank account. So when you all first open a bank account, one of the things that you're going to go through is what we call an account verification. And what this essentially is a bank is now checking what we call is a checklist that all banks can check to see, has this individual burned a bridge with the previous bank, which could be having your account go into the negative and you were never able to bring it back positive, and then the bank just decided to end the relationship. Or this can be if some fraud had taken place on your account and the bank, they felt like you may have been involved. But there's a check verification that they go to now. If you haven't done anything, and you've taken care of your bank account in the right way, then when they run this account verification, it'll come back with a check mark. Now, once you open up your account, you want to be completely aware of what a deposit and what a withdrawal looks like. And when you make deposits, you want to have the conversation with the bank. Okay, when is my money usually available? They should have some type of language to give to you to let you know when your money will be available and what you can check to make sure that your money is available or when it will be available. And with withdrawals, you want to make sure that you understand your withdrawal limits. And that's on ATM card, that is on making purchases per day, but also what your withdrawal limits are, as far as if you can hire them or not. I think that's a key. Sometimes we have higher bills, and sometimes we have other things that we need to pay for that may be a little expensive. So asking that question of what your withdrawal limits is always key. And then when you're talking about record interest and fees, you want to ask, hey, if I have a certain amount of money and I'm putting in a savings account, how much interest does this account get? Which again is APY, the annual percentage yield. I want to know, if I open up a savings account and I already have $3,000, am I going to get any interest? Do you guys have accounts that offer that? And when you have fees, you want to make sure you know your fee schedule. You want to make sure you know, when will you have a chance to incur some fees. Is that going to a wrong ATM? Is that taking out money out of my savings account too many times? Make sure you know what fees are associated with your account so you can kind of stay clear of those fees. And then keep track of your account balance. You can do that by online banking. You can do that by calling the number on the back of the card. You can do that by actually going into a physical branch. And then you can check your ATM. So there's many different ways to keep track of your account balance. Poll question, and this kind of wraps your head around being able to know what you should be accurately getting paid. So let's ask the question: does anybody know what the difference between gross and net pay? And remember, you guys can unmute yourself, or you can write it in the chat, whichever is easier for you all. Anybody? Does anybody know the difference between the gross and net pay for my individuals, that are getting paid on a consistent basis? What is the difference between the gross and net pay? You see, we have Miss Bruce typing something. Gross is before deductions. Absolutely. So the gross pay is what you're getting paid before taxes come out. Does anyone know what net pay is? So we have gross pay are the deductions that come out before you get paid, and net pay is the pay that you received after deductions. So if any of us remember when we used to receive those paper checks, we would look and say, "Oh man, I got paid this amount. Oh, that's amazing." And then you look to the bottom of the check and you're like, "Oh, this is really what I really made. Okay, this is what came out. Great." But the reason why we put this slide up is because we want to make sure that you guys know, when you select your deductions from your paycheck, please be honest, because at the end of the year, you will end up owing, rather than getting, a tax benefit back. So we want to make sure that we're very, very clear on that. And let's take a look. Let's take a look at what that formula looks like. Your earnings before taxes and other deductions. So you guys were spot on, perfect. Now let's look at what that formula looks like. So your gross salary equals your annual salary divided by the number of pay periods. Does anyone know the number of pay periods in a year if you're getting paid bi-weekly? 26, absolutely. And for the individuals that are getting paid weekly, 52. So when we look at that, your gross salary, so if someone is getting paid $80,000 a year, right? It's going to be it's going to be $80,000 divided by the 26 pay periods. That is going to be what your gross salary is, right? So at any point that you all are getting paid and you're having a feeling like, oh, I'm missing some money, you guys have the formula right here to come up with what your gross salary would be. Now, when we look at net pay, your earnings after taxes, other deductions, also known as your take-home pay. So you guys were spot on. Net pay is after all taxes and deductions have been taken out. Great job, Mr. Dawkins. So when we look at the Federal Income Contributions Act, we know this is almost a rough estimate of Social Security being almost 6.2%, Medicare being almost 1.45%. And when you add that up, that's 7.65. So this will be majority, if not all, of your taxes that'll be coming out. So you look, okay, step one, my gross pay is the number that we just received in the last slide. We're going to take that number and we're going to minus it by 7.65. This is going to tell you what your Federal Income Contributions Act tax amount is. Now, step two, we want to look at that gross pay from the last slide and we want to minus that by whatever that amount was for the FICA tax amount, and that's going to come up with your net pay. So yes, this may be, a little bit mathy, but if that's a word, but we want to make sure that you guys have the knowledge. One of the things that, we suffer from sometimes as a community is not having the knowledge. So if you have it, you can do a due diligence yourself, check the math and see if it works. And if it's right, then guess what? You're just doing your checks and balances for yourself. Now, poll question, and I think this is a very big question. Why is it important to budget? Or why is budgeting important? And let's put this in the chat. Why is budgeting important? Let's see. So Mr. Dawkins says, so that you are able to create a stable financial life. Absolutely, Mr. Dawkins. We just talked about it when we said, what are the steps to turn your dreams into reality? So this is kind of the same question, but now we're starting to really think now. So you don't overspend and you can see where your money is going. Absolutely, Yvonne. And that's actually on our next slide. So let's take a look. What is a budget? A budget is a necessary plan, but it identifies and defines your financial goals. So when we say it creates a financial life, it's going to identify what's important to you. Is your goal important or are you sticking to it? And then it manages your money flow. So like Yvonne said, you can't overspend and you can see where your money is going. So if you can see where your money is going, that means you know that you're on the right plan. So if you set up an automatic transfer, which you can do at any bank or any financial institution, now you know, okay, at least I don't have to go in every week and manually send this money over. I've set up a plan because of my budget to send money automatically to a savings account, right? And then it says it directs your money flow. So again, if you have a budget, it's directing where your money is going, right? It's really telling the story of how you're saving. And then it increases your savings. If you create a budget, that means you're not spending unnecessary money. That means you're not spending unnecessary money on wants. You're spending money on needs, and that other cash is being saved. And then you achieve your personal goals. One thing I would say, whenever we're able to achieve personal goals, it puts us in a place where it kind of makes us feel not invincible, but we feel like, hey, I can do this. I've just completed a goal that I never thought I would be able to complete. What other goals can I make for myself, financially or personally? How do I create a budget? Where does my money come from? Where does it come from? Is it coming from your job? Is it coming from maybe you have a property? Where is your money coming from? And where does my money go? Where does it go? What bills do you have? What obligations do you have? What things can you cut out that you're spending unnecessary money on? And step three, what are all my bills and when are they due? I think this is one of the biggest ones because if you don't know when your bills are due, how can you have a budget? How can you know when you need to apply money to a bill if you can't remember when it's due? If you think your bill is due at the end of the month, but it's really due at the beginning of the month, you're going to have some trials and tribulations because now you haven't saved adequately to be able to pay that bill. So now you're over. Now more money is coming out of your account for that bill that you could have budgeted and saved. And now for that week, now you may be tight. And now another bill may not get paid because we didn't make a budget and we didn't figure out when our bills were due. Um, Creating a working budget. I think over my lifespan, I've created so many different budgets and it's been hard to stick to. But what I can say is when you do decide to stick to it, it may not be as fun, but that goal that you put in mind, it's going to be so much greater than anything that you did along that process that may have stopped you from actually reaching that goal. Now, why do we need to borrow money? Let's take a look at this because this is going to segue into an important topic that I think all of us may have questions about. Why do we borrow money from financial institutions? Can anyone put that in the chat real quick? Or maybe you can just unmute yourself and speak. But why do we borrow money from financial institutions? And some of you may notice in the picture, these are some of the answers of why we borrow money. Big purchases like a house. Absolutely. As you see on this picture, that third picture from the left, it's a house. We use it for big purchases. To purchase a home or a car. Absolutely. Absolutely, Miss Brooks. To purchase a home or a car. Or if you see the gentleman all the way far left, guess what? He needed to make a big purchase to be able to get out of school. And I think, with student loans, I think a lot of us have made sure that, hey, look, I want to go to school. I may have to make a big purchase, but it's going to pay off. So let's look. What is credit? Because this segue into how do we even get to make these big purchases with the financial institutions? We need good credit, or we need to know at least what that looks like. So what is credit? Credit is the ability to borrow money. It's a promise, sometimes called a loan, a promise to pay back money and pay back with interest. If I have a friend and I say, hey, look, man, I need to borrow $20. And he says, hey, look, okay, make sure you bring this back to me on Friday. Okay. If I don't bring him back to him on Friday, he's going to look at me and say, wow, we made a pact that you were going to bring it back on Friday. Okay. Now I come to him again. Hey, man, can I borrow 25 bucks? He's going to look at me, ah, I let him borrow 25 bucks before. He didn't give it to me right when he said he would, but I'll try him again. Let's see. Now I bring it back a day late again. And he's like, wow, I thought you were going to bring it back. Now my rap sheet, my resume of him loaning me money and bringing it back on time, it's not very good at all. So just imagine if he took that rap sheet and went to another friend and said, hey, look, if this guy ever wants to borrow money from you, this is what that looks like. He doesn't pay me back on time. And sometimes it may not be all of the money. But when we look at it, that third time, guess what? He may say, you know what? If you want to borrow money this time, you have to bring it back to me on that day. And if you don't, it's going to be an extra $30. So when we talk about payback with interest, with any of these loan companies or any of these banks or financial institutions that may give you a loan, if you have a resume of not paying money back on time, they may still give you that loan. But what you may have to pay back in interest may be a lot higher than someone who has a great resume of making their promise and paying money back on time. So why is credit important? In our chat, why is credit important? Anyone in our chat, why is credit important? It allows you to make a purchase without having the money at that time. Absolutely, Mr. Dawkins. If you have credit, it gives you the capability of not having any money or the amount that you want to get or buy. It gives you that capability of being able to make that purchase. Some jobs will actually check your credit. Absolutely, Ms. Brooks. And you actually pushed us into why credit is important. It's convenient when you don't have cash. So as Mr. Dawkins greatly told us, it allows you to make purchases when you don't have the money at the time. It is useful in times of an emergency. Guys, I can't even explain how important it is to be able to have some type of cash or some type of payment. It's been more than 2 or 3 times that I've been driving and I've had a busted tire, or I've gotten to a place where I left my cash and I don't have any way to get to where I need to go. That credit card or that, having great credit to have some cash or have a credit card, that had served me as such a benefit because, yeah, I'm going to have to pay that money back. Absolutely. But it's going to be over a span of time. So if I have a job and I'm getting consistently paid, that's not a financial stress. It's a financial confidence that I had some other way to pay for that emergency. And it allows you to make purchases and pay for them over time. So as I said, you know, you need a car to get to and from work. You have pretty good credit. You're able to go in with no money at all, walk out with a car, be able to make it to work, and now make money to pay off that car over time. And I think one of the ones that just came about maybe 15 to 20 years ago, and someone alluded to, employment. And we may say, well, guess what? I'm the best plumber in Maryland, or the best plumber in DC, or the best plumber in Virginia. But if I have bad credit, a company may well say, well, you may be the best, but you don't keep your promises with making payments back. So I don't know if we really trust you. I don't know if we really trust you with some of the things that we may need to give you, some resources we may need to give you to be able to perform your job, because we don't know if you're going to bring it back. We don't know if you're going to keep it. We don't know what you're going to do, because sometimes companies look at your credit report and say, well, this actually defines this person. This actually tells us who this person is. And this plays a role in housing and insurance, especially in housing for people that are trying to rent a space, apartment, a condo, a home. That person that owns the home, they may not give you that house because you have a bad credit score, and they're saying, you know what, this is not important to them. So make sure that, we write this down, because this can be something that can help you in the future. Now let's take a short look at this pie that kind of breaks down how your credit is looked upon. So 35%, which is the biggest percent, is your payment history. So have you made payments on time? Have you made sure, did you make sure to, if they tell you to pay about a 30th, you paid about a 30th. Now, 30% of that is amount owed. So if you have a credit card of a total amount of 5,000 on it, if you owe 4,500, and that's 30% of your credit score, you owe too much. And now that credit score is going to be a little lower because you owe almost the whole credit card. And that's not really good. So when we look at 15%, that's the length of your credit history. So how long have you had your credit card? Which means if you are able to get a secure card or a credit card and you're using it right, keep that credit card, because the longer you have it, the longer it shows that you were responsible enough to maintain it. Now we have 10% for credit mix and we have 10% for, that looks like, and I think sometimes I need to get my glasses, for new credit. So new credit is if you're able to attain a new credit card. And a mix of credit is if you're able to obtain a credit card, but also able to obtain a car, or if you're able to obtain a car, if you're able to obtain a house. Now it shows that your credit is good enough where you can mix and match and get other streams of credit lines. Any questions before I move along? Okay, so we're coming to our last slide, and it says, where does the credit report come from? Now, I think this is one of the biggest ones because if you want to eventually attain some credit, you have to know what your credit score looks like. When I worked in the financial industry, I was surprised when I had individuals that came in and said, "Hey, I want to open up a credit card." Okay. Have you checked your credit score? No, I haven't, but I know I need a credit card, and someone told me that this would be a great decision to make. I want to be responsible. Okay, so my thought process is, excuse me, if you haven't checked your credit score, how do you even know if you're going to be approved? And are you aware that when we do this credit check, that this is going to go on your credit as an inquiry? And after you get a certain amount of inquiries, that starts to it starts to hurt your credit score. So on this slide, we have a list of the 3 major credit bureaus that most lenders go through. We have TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. Now, these are also subscriptions. So when we talked about earlier, a subscription is something that you must pay. This is something that can benefit you because once you have logged in into Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, once you pay for that subscription, you can now go in and check your entire credit history, your credit score, who you owe, what their number is to contact them. They're also starting to show you with your certain credit score what lenders are going to accept you and what type of loans that you can apply for. If this is a car loan, a house loan, or a regular loan. And they've even gotten detailed to the point where they can tell you what type of car you can buy with that credit score. And for me, that helps me out leaps and bounds because I can know what range I'm in. I can know if I owe a certain creditor, how to reach them. I can know, okay, maybe I don't think I owe them. Let me do a dispute. Let me make sure that I owe them. And if I don't, within 30 days, if they don't respond, that dispute or that creditor will come off of your credit report. So I want to make sure that you all are very, very aware of how to check your credit because knowing your credit is the first step. Knowing how to use your credit is the second step, but knowing where to go to use your credit is the final step. Does anybody have any questions about TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax? In each of these credit bureaus, it only costs, I want to say, between 20 to 25 bucks to actually obtain their service, but it's very beneficial. I use Experian, and actually, if I pay bills through the Experian app, that actually gives me a credit boost. So that's just another benefit of obtaining one of these subscriptions. Any questions? Any questions about anything that we talked about today? Because this is now, we're going to have a short 5-minute, and I know we're going to go over, but a short 5-minute Q&A for anything that we talked about as far as this financial literacy presentation. Any questions at all? We went over a lot today. Okay. Mr. Dawkins asked, would they provide the information on the account, such as when it was open and all the type of information? And Mr. Dawkins, I want to make sure, are you talking about as far as when you check your credit? Are you asking, would they provide the information on the account that you have for your credit? If that's what you're referring to, yes. So any credit account that you have, let's just say you have a car loan, that will be on your credit report. and it'll show when that car loan was open. It'll show how many times you've made payments on time, and it'll show who the lender is, and it'll also show how much you owe. So it'll show that final payment amount, because sometimes we want to know, hey, if I want to pay this off, I want to know how much I need to pay. Okay, great. So does my agency assist students with bank accounts? Ms. Brooks, absolutely. That is the second phase to our Bank on DC mission. We do financial literacy, but we also make sure that all of our DC residents have bank accounts. So if you are in need of a bank account, I'm sure that I can, and let me put this link in our chat so you guys can go, and I'll stop sharing really quick. So let me go and get this link, because there's a link that you all can actually go to, and you guys can fill out, and it's our Bank on DC account enrollment form, and it allows you to go in and select a bank. It allows you to give us your information, but it also allows us to reach out to the bank and then give them your information. And what they'll do is they'll reach out to you within the next 2 to 3 days to make sure that they set up an appointment to open up a bank account. And give me 1 second, I'm grabbing that link. Okay, Ms. Brooks, and I have put that link in there for you to see. Do we have any more questions for today? Any questions around savings account? Any questions around, opening an account? Any questions around, how to check your account, or just any questions that you guys may have that you weren't able to ask the last time you were inside of a bank, or maybe you heard something from one of your friends and you're like, hey, let me ask and see if that was really true, or was it not true at all? And if no questions, I'll turn it back over to you, Stacy.
Thank you. OSSE Adult and Family Education and the University of the District of Columbia would love to really just say thank you so very much for all of this amazing information and for a really dynamic presentation. It was a lot of fun, and we will be posting this and the handout, the PowerPoint, on our website. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. And you guys have a wonderful day.
Thank you.